morning, everyone. We are here today because DeKalb County insists on breaking the promises that it has made to its residents who are struggling with unfair water debt. The County Commission voted to pass a water affordability resolution months ago, and what was once hope has now turned to despair and to anger because without those affordability measures, many residents are on the verge of either losing their access to water or facing financial ruin. We have a few speakers here to share more about what is occurring, and the first is Catherine Maddox with the DeKalb County Water Watch Coalition.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. The majority of DeKalb Water Watch Coalition has gathered here today in what we hope will be the final push towards permanently safeguarding DeKalb residents' right to access affordable, clean water. These are uncertain times, and many of us are witnessing in horror the fabric of society unravel as the freedoms and rights once assured working people in this country virtually vaporize. Now, more than ever, localities must urgently act and do everything in their power to protect their communities. I applaud the Cochran-Johnson administration for taking the necessary step in pausing the rate increase while the Urban League is being staffed and funded to take the critical role as the neutral arbiter for water billing disputes. But other steps must immediately be taken to meaningfully address the systemic breakdown at the root of this crisis, to immediately relieve residents who find themselves trapped in its economic crosshairs at no fault of their own, which is only attainable through the implementation of the resolution passed unanimously by the Board of Commissioners back in February, and an amnesty program to forgive the highly questionable, often disputed, and nearly always unpayable water debt. It is important for the public to be educated on the components of this resolution to successfully break through the mythology that the public interest and the county's interest are somehow competing, when in fact they are one and the same. The county must treat water billing issues with seriousness if they expect to generate the revenue it needs from these bills. It is totally asinine that monthly payment plans in the hundreds are being assigned to residents on fixed incomes. It is ludicrous that residents are being issued multi-year payment plans on disputed debt with stipulations that a single late payment could result in disconnection without notice, and for this to be labeled compassionate. It is beyond comprehension that residents with disabilities and acute medical conditions are being threatened with disconnection if they do not make immediate payments in the thousands of dollars, instead of being educated by the administration about the affordability resolution the CEO has insisted she is adhering to. So since the Cochran-Johnson administration refuses to educate the public, on our coalition will. Included in the resolution are the following: an income-based billing program which caps the water bills of residents at an affordable percentage of their monthly income. Our coalition has advocated for the county to adopt the UN standard of a 3% cap. Alternatively, the EPA standard is between 3 and 4.5%. In recent meetings with the county, we are not getting a clear answer on what standard they plan to use and are seriously concerned about vaguely referenced calculations. The county cannot simply invent its own affordability standard. Additionally, why is there not so much as a landing page outlining this program on the county's website? This resolution passed in February. Why is the county dragging their feet on laying out the parameters for this and enrolling people? Had they acted with sufficient urgency, they would not have had to pause this rate increase. Secondly, the creation of a customer advocate office to be a neutral arbiter for billing disputes. Our coalition is pleased with the dedication and attention of the Urban League, whom the CEO has appointed for this critical role, and we encourage the administration to adequately staff and fund this office, who towards the beginning will be tasked with investigating complex legacy disputes in the tens of thousands and even some in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Thirdly, shut off protections for lower income residents who are also disabled or elderly or children. The county has been ignoring this essential component of the resolution since it was voted on. Societies are judged by how they treat their most vulnerable. Advocates modeled this particular policy after one in Baltimore, a municipality who prides themselves on not having disconnected a single resident's water since 2015, and one which has boasted record revenues during that time. With enough vision and political will, this is also achievable for DeKalb. While not included in the resolution, the county presented on our proposed amnesty program during the CEO's town halls in February, promising a debt forgiveness program for lower income residents with water liabilities. Amnesty is essential to relieve lower income residents whom the Legal Defense Fund has found in their research to be disparately impacted by water shutoffs and, by extension, high bills and debt. With the administration's endorsement, this program is likely to find favor with commissioners and because their constituents desperately need it. So why is the finance department insisting on squeezing people when the programs guaranteeing their financial relief are right around the corner? Make no mistake, these same customers will be eligible to plead their case once again to the customer advocate, and given the circumstances I have witnessed, will likely be credited back anyways. So why is the finance department using their lower income residents as banks for their own sketchy short-term loans? This is bad economics and bad governance all around. Our coalition was founded by residents in 2016, and I will be damned if they are still going through this in 2026. This crisis is too deep-seated, too rotten, too long-standing not to be fully examined and extricated. The only logical action for the county is to stop this madness. Until all of the components of the resolution are fully implemented, the county must immediately pause all disconnections. Immediately pause all payment plans pending an affordability review, and adopt a policy that any future disputes requiring payment plans be assigned by the customer advocate. Also, immediately halt all payment plans negotiations with the finance department and allow those residents shut-off protections until such a time as when their dispute can be adjudicated by the customer advocate. There is no other way forward, and we must move forward.
Our next speaker is Dom Kelly, the president and CEO of New Disabled South.
Good morning. Dom Kelly, I'm the co-founder, president, and CEO of New Disabled South. We're a disability rights and justice organization based here in Georgia, but we work across 14 states. So legislation that this body passed in February is supposed to prohibit water shutoffs for individuals or households making 50% AMI or below with children age 0 to 18 years old, individuals or household making 50% AMI or below over the age of 65, and individuals with disabilities that can be documented. And yet, despite CEO Johnson's claims, the county has failed to properly implement these shutoff protections, and residents of this county are continuing to suffer as a result. Disabled people are 4 times more likely than non-disabled people to die during disasters and when they don't have access to necessary resources like water. 10% of DeKalb County's residents are disabled, and that's just the data that we have. The majority are Black folks, and the vast majority don't just live in poverty, but live in forced poverty due to dehumanizing policy that doesn't give disabled people the same access to opportunity. I think of people like Gregory Jones, a DeKalb County resident whose son has cerebral palsy, like me, and a seizure disorder, and whose life depends on available water for his daily care, but who still got a water shutoff notice. Water shutoffs in DeKalb County disproportionately harm disabled residents, many of whom depend on uninterrupted water access for basic daily living and health-related needs. For disabled folks who rely on medical devices and for in-home care, the impact of these shutoffs is immediate and life-threatening, and the impacts disproportionately harm Black and brown disabled people. As someone who works on similar issues in 13 other southern states, I can tell you that this is not unique to Georgia or DeKalb County, but embarrassingly, DeKalb County is one of the worst that I've seen. This county's decision not to implement these protections is not just a failure of its commitment but it highlights the racism and ableism that's built into our systems that they continue to perpetuate. 17 million people are about to lose their health care in this country due to cuts to Medicaid. Thousands of disabled folks in Georgia will be affected, many likely in DeKalb County. Hundreds will be institutionalized as a result of losing access to in-home care. Social Security Administration cut thousands of staffs, which has increased the wait time for supplemental security income and other Social Security disability as well, and thousands of people die every year waiting. DeKalb County is making it even harder for disabled people to access life-saving and life-sustaining utilities and resources. DeKalb County must act immediately to prioritize protecting its disabled residents and all residents impacted by their choice to ignore this legislation. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Fallon Mccclure, the Deputy Southeast Director of Working Families Power.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Fallon Mccclure. I'm the Deputy Southeast Regional Director for Working Families Power. Working Families Power represents the multiracial working class, which consists of teachers, healthcare workers, small business owners, and families, and so many more who keep DeKalb County running. Today, we stand with our coalition partners because water is not a luxury. It's a human right that no family should lose because they can't afford an inflated bill. Every day, working families are facing a crisis, and the crisis is particularly compounded for those who have elderly loved ones, children, or disabled loved ones in their home, the most vulnerable members of our community. Just a few examples working families are facing. One resident faced a $62,000 water bill while caring for his son who has cerebral palsy and relies on a ventilator. Another example, a single mother faced an $18,000 water bill and was without water for 2 weeks. Unfortunately, these are not isolated cases. These are the faces of a crisis that's pushing working families to the brink. I don't know about y'all, but I definitely cannot afford a $5,000 water bill, let alone $18,000 or $62,000. What would happen to you if your family had a faulty pipeline or water meter and received a bill for, let's say, $20,000? Then suppose the county asked you for half of that bill upon demand, or risk your water getting shut off. How could you survive in your residence without water? How long could you be able to afford a hotel? That's the economic injustice that our neighbors are facing through no fault of their own. When we have residents choosing between paying water bills and buying groceries, between keeping the lights on and keeping the water running, we have a fundamental failure of economic justice. Water affordability isn't just about one utility bill. It's about economic stability for entire families. When working people face unpayable water debt, it creates a cascade of financial hardship. They can't invest in their children's education. They can't save for emergencies. They can't participate fully in our economy. The income-based billing program and water bill amnesty programs aren't radical ideas. It's what economic justice looks like. Working families need protections now. That's why we're demanding an immediate pause on disconnections until all components of the affordability resolution are implemented. We also call for transparency in amnesty programs, along with a county-wide initiative to educate residents on income-based billing, amnesty programs, and how they qualify. This isn't just about the water bill. It's about whether DeKalb County leaders will prioritize working families or continue a system that criminalizes poverty. We demand that our elected officials adhere to the consent decree, which orders them to protect working families, especially our community's most vulnerable. From the national level to the state level to the county level, we deserve a system that works for all, not just the wealthy. Thank you.
Our final speaker is Kiana Jones, a chapter organizer with Sierra Club, Georgia.
Good morning. My name is Kiana Jones Moore. I serve as chapter organizer for Sierra Club, Georgia chapter. And everything has been laid out to you, the plight of this county and the people who are being affected by unfair billing and water shutoffs. The recent findings of a legal defense fund analysis have been amplified that Black people, here in DeKalb County particularly, are disproportionately overbilled, and they have water bills that they cannot afford. We've talked about families who are caring for loved ones with disabilities. We have talked about senior citizens who are having to make the choice between paying a water bill and getting their medication. But what we're not talking about, and what I want to amplify even more, is the lack of transparency in the dealings from the new CEO, Lorraine Cochran Johnson. Ms. Cochran Johnson has run on a platform and called herself Lorraine for Change. But right now, the only thing that we see that has changed in DeKalb County is the name and the hand of the person who is dealing unfairly with DeKalb residents. We need the CEO to double down on making sure that the federal consent decree that's been in effect for 17 years, that the previous CEO decided to let us know on his last day of office would not be enforced. We need Lorraine Cochran Johnson to be the one to change that trajectory and make sure that that consent decree is adhered to. Because if we adhered to the provisions of the consent decree, then there would be adequate infrastructure repairs in DeKalb County that would make it so that water bills are not so high for certain people. I can't tell you how many of my neighbors, senior citizens, but I'll say that there are two that I know of specifically who have complained about unusually high water billing. And then there is one in particular that is talking about unusually low billing, who has contacted the county, and the county has said, oh, well, don't worry about it, there's not an issue. So we have one resident that is paying very low bills with no monitoring, and we have two who have come to the county over and over but are being met with opposition because they are simply disputing what they are being billed. It's common knowledge that DeKalb County has had an issue with faulty water meters, and that has not been completely remedied. But it's also common knowledge that DeKalb County is home to a lot of blighted infrastructure that is owned by commercial entities, and we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what they owe in water billing. The CEO has erroneously sent messages that this affordability crisis is because of delinquent residents, but that is simply not true. It is simply not true. They've neglected to acknowledge that these high bills and legacy debt are coming because of a lack of enforcement of the federal consent decree that has been in effect for 17 years. The CEO has also met with residents via Zoom, and she's made them sign agreements, payment agreements. One resident in particular was made to sign a 7-year agreement, wherein if he is late with even one bill payment, his water can be shut off without notice from the county. Is that fair? The CEO has begun to weaponize the very language that we have called for in the previously passed resolution. Amnesty is not a violent term. Amnesty means that people who need it won't be pressed for unfair bills. The resident who was made to sign the 7-year agreement actually qualifies for shutoff protections because he's a resident that lives with a medical disability. Come on, CEO Cochran Johnson. Are you going to keep squeezing, nickeling, and diming our residents who are already struggling with high energy burden just so that you can say that you were the one who changed something in DeKalb? What we see so far is that DeKalb has not changed for the better, that Lorraine for Change continues a change toward the worse for our residents. And what we're calling for is for you, CEO Cochran Johnson, to exercise the authority you have, not to spend money on another video glamorizing yourself, but to protect the residents of DeKalb County, because water is not a luxury. Water, clean, affordable water, is a human right.
So this concludes our prepared remarks. And just to be extremely clear, the reason why residents have these debts in the first place is because of DeKalb County's infrastructure crisis, their faulty meters, and their administrative neglect. We urge CEO Cochran Johnson to stop victim blaming residents for the county's failures and instead come back to the table to implement the solutions we have outlined today. Now, if there are any questions for our speakers, we'll take those now.
I know you guys said it was not on the agenda today, but what are you hoping to do when it comes to the meeting?
Yeah, we couldn't wait for Amnesty to make it to the big meeting. We don't have that kind of time. The residents don't have that kind of time to wait. So we had this press conference today to call for the CEO to immediately act and implement a pause on all water disconnections, all negotiations of payment plans by the finance department, and all ongoing payments towards payment plans by the finance department, considering the broken system within that department.
We've been talking to you guys for several years about these issues. Has there been any improvement?
Can you repeat the question?
She said that they've been talking to us for several years. Has there been any improvement? There has been a total improvement if they would only just implement them. The Board of Commissioners unanimously passed this comprehensive affordability resolution, in which lies all of the solutions that the administration needs to deal with this water billing crisis. So it's just a matter of implementing the resolution as it was intended.
What are your next steps if the county continues to be tone deaf?
That's a really good question. We'll see. We'll see. We're looking at our options.
Has any of the residents that you've been in contact with have been health-wise been negatively impacted to the point of hospitalization, anything like that?
We have residents who have ongoing issues. There is one woman whose water is off, and she has an infection in her stomach that is antibiotic resistant, and she is an elder, and she is continuing to have to work to earn a living and live in a house without water while she is enduring this. So that's one example that I can give you.
Kat, I know you mentioned the kind of pause on implementing like the water rate hike, but can you just remind us again, like what was Water Watch's reaction to that announcement coming out? I guess like the day before.
Sure. Yeah. So this press conference is basically our reaction to that. Again, we applaud the Cochran-Johnson administration for recognizing the need for a pause on the rate increase, but if the administration wants to sincerely relieve residents and to examine the root causes of this issue, that, like I said, needs to be extricated, then they must also pause all disconnections, ongoing negotiations with the finance departments on payment plans, and the creation of any new payment plan with the finance department. They all need affordability reviews at this point. We've seen far too many residents who are on fixed incomes that are put on arbitrary payment plans of $300 to $500 a month. And this has been after the affordability resolution was passed.